it changes everything for you. Once your confidence is like, okay, I could do this. Now it changes the way you think. It changes the approach to your work. It changes the output of your work. It changes the way you carry yourself. It changes the way you talk about your work. So the
Uh,
milestones is everything. Make sure you're not just skipping steps. You're giving
mhm.
yourself milestones, making those milestones, and being like, all right, let me get to the next one and the next one, so that you feel you're not disappointed by your production, by your output.
At this stage where we are, right, so much AI and so much hype around AI and how AI will take our jobs. Especially you are a writer, right? And you must be hearing it every day. Okay, AI is writing so much for us, but how frustrating is it for you to listen to this thing that AI will take away a writer's job? Or is it real? How much is this hype actually real that AI will be becoming a better writer?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, part of it is definitely real. Part of it is you see people or see companies laying off writers and laying off. You see companies laying off people in general.
Yeah.
It's not just specific to writing. However, I also want to flip it to the other side of it. There, companies are large, small, medium-sized companies. They're starting to realize that storytelling is actually a core um, pillar of what they're trying to do,
That's
a
right.
core pillar of how they're trying to sell, a core pillar of how they're trying to connect with
Hmm.
their audience.
Yeah.
And they're actually now flipping it and saying, well, we need to hire a storyteller in-house to start writing some of these stories and connecting with the audience that we're missing out on, because audiences don't want to connect with the brand, they want to connect with the person, they want to connect with stories, they want to connect with the concept and the ideas that are happening culturally, and they want to see where you stand on those things. So they
Mhm.
writers now, like if you look at writing jobs in a very strange way, the number of jobs have actually increased. If you look on something like LinkedIn, the number of jobs in the last year has increased substantially. The job title, though, you have to be careful. It doesn't always say writer. It will say storyteller. It would
Uh-huh.
say um, creative content strategist. It will say content lead. Um, it's all these variations of writers and storytelling that we need to really look out for as writers, and not just stick to the narrative that AI is taking away jobs. That's part of it. I'm obviously not saying that's not. I'm saying there's other side of it where there are opportunities being created, and these jobs are paying $200,000, $300,000
Yeah.
US, right? Like these are serious jobs. So it's it's really important that we don't, as writers, we don't get stuck in the narrative, and we focus on the opportunity. So yes, it's happening, but at the same time, there are opportunities that we need to pay attention to.
Okay. Now, there's this very thing, right? In the name itself, it says artificial intelligence, and there is no AI at this point which has passed the Turing test, and there's still so many things that you can tell, right? This is artificially written by a software or some tool. Now, for a person like who's been out, who like you, who's been writing so many books, what's the one thing that's keeping your stories human? If you want to, if I can ask it that way, probably.
Keeping my stories human.
I know,
I like that. I like
man.
that. It's true. No, no, no. You're absolutely right. I think for me, it's two things: experience and perspective. I have real life experience. I know what it feels
Yeah.
like to struggle. I know what it feels like to go through things. I know what it feels joyful and content, and feel sad. So being able to connect with those emotions, I understand nuance in a whole way that an artificial intelligence is just not capable of, at least not yet. And
Hmm.
then the other way is just perspective. Because of those experiences, I'm able to create a perspective that, again, is my own. Like it's very unique to me, even though we're all living a similar life at the same time. My perspective and my interpretation of those experiences that I just mentioned before means that I could create something that is completely my own and completely unique. So I think those two things for sure are what makes writing especially human, and then the just general fact that I think art in general is human expression. That
That's
is the in my world, that's my definition of art. It's human expression. So I
yeah.
don't even know if AI is capable of doing what we consider art.
Yeah, that's right. And when it comes to writing, I might be wrong, but I might be right. But it's just what I've heard that making money as a writer, as a regular conventional writer, where you work with a publishing house and you've published so many books. So that part is a little difficult. If you could break that down for the uninitiated, right? Why is it said to be so
Hmm.
difficult to patch up with a publishing house and say that this is a very difficult industry to get into?
It is difficult. I won't even lie to you. Getting published and then selling books while published is complicated. First of all, getting published is hard because it's not a lottery, but I mean, not everyone can make it. They could
Mhm.
only The publisher only has so many editors who they employ as an editor, as a publisher. Their job is to be like, no, 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 until they find the one that they feel completely passionate about, and they think that this book can actually sell and make some money because publishing is a business. So that's the first part. Just getting in is hard because it's a business and they can't take on everybody. But then the other part is about trying to make money is it's last year in like 2024, like 4 million books were released. You know, that number is ridiculous. No one's reading that many books in the world, right? So
Yeah.
you're going up against millions and millions of books, first of all. So you trying to find a space to actually connect with an audience is complicated because you have so much competition. And now the way the internet is structured, you're not just going up against books. Now you're going against Netflix. You're going up against video games. You're going up against Substack. You're going up against YouTube. So you have to be so compelling. Your book has to be so compelling to break through all other distractions, and all I won't even call them distractions, all those other pieces of art. There's art on Netflix, there's art on YouTube, there's art on those platforms. So now you have to be so good, you have to actually be better than those, or at least um find a way to bring enough attention to yourself that it matters, right? So
Yeah.
that becomes complicated. And now when you're published, it gives you a little bit better of a chance because these publishers have give you exposure opportunities. But
Mhm.
now now you have to sell. If you're published, your royalty rate is about 15%, 15%, right? It is, you will have to sell a lot of books at a 15% royalty rate to make money. What it works out to, and I could say this fairly confidently, 15% royalty rate works out to more or less, it's not exact, but more or less $1 a book.
All right.
So think about how many books you have to sell in a year to make a
That's
good
right.
living. If
Yeah.
it's $1 a book, you have to, the average wage, I'm in Canada, the average minimum wage, average wage here, annual wage in Canada, I believe is like 60,000 or 55, something around there, right? 55,
Mhm.
60,000, let's just say. So if for me to reach that, I have to sell 60,000 books. Do you know
Yeah.
what kind, what kind of massive effort that would take? So writers need to just come into this with a reality of publishing is one avenue. The very few, first of all, very few get published. So that's like you're looking at less than 5% of people who try to get published. And then you're looking at less than 1% of those who, when they get published, actually sell enough books to make a living.
Mhm.
It is a brutal business. A brutal business. So you have to think of yourself when you think about your career as an author selling
Mhm.
books. You have to think of yourself as a writer, not just an author. Because if you get too caught up in just being an author, it's a very it can be a very long, emotionally draining and disappointing road, but if you could find a way to use writing and leverage writing as your skill, leverage your
Mhm.
skill of writing to make money, and then the anything from their published books becomes not necessary to your survival, then it puts you in a different place because now you can create more freely. You don't have the stress and the anxiety of, oh my gosh, this book has to sell 60,000 copies this year, right? So
Yeah.
I would say, like, it's a come into the game wide open. Make sure you have your emotionally stable when you come in, and make sure you're making money somewhere else when you
Mhm.
come in, because depending on being an author, period, I'm not sure if that's maybe not the wisest route. You know what I mean? Even though, and to me, and I'm saying that as someone who is ambitious, like I want to wake up one day and only write books. I say that all the time. So I'm not trying to deflate anyone's ambition or anyone's dream. I'm saying still at the same time be realistic about it.
Right. Okay. Now, what I've been wondering is that there's a lot of hay and say about self-publishing, right? I mean, obviously there's Penguin and everybody, but there's so much noise about becoming a self-published author, say Amazon or somewhere else, right? What's this route like? Is it, I mean, obviously there are 4 million books coming out from established publishers, but also so many million people who are trying to self-publish their books and then trying to
Yeah.
come into this game. How is this different? And okay, this is a different line of thought that I want to talk about. What do you think about people who look at publishing a book as only a form of self-validation, right? People.
Yes. Okay. So I'll give you two answers. So first about self-publishing. Self-publishing is a viable route. It's a route that you should consider. It's a route I would actually encourage the majority of authors to probably take. If you're serious about writing, if you're serious about selling books, then take it. If we'll get to the validation after. But if you're serious about writing books and serious about selling books, being self-published is a great route. First of all, your royalty rate is much higher. You're getting about when it's all said and done, about 50% royalty rate, 50. So that means you're making, if you're selling a book for $20, you're making $10 a book, right? That is an incredible, incredible difference. So now, instead of having to sell 60,000 books to make $60,000, you could sell, I don't know what the math is, you could sell 5,000 books, right?
Mhm.
To make $60,000. Like, so that now that seems doable. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I could sell, like, you feel like that's something that you could get to,
Yeah.
if you do things right, you could actually get to 5,000 books. So I would encourage people to self-publish. The only thing with self-publishing though is you have to be so committed, so
Mhm.
committed because there's no publisher to get you into festivals. There's no publisher to put you in every bookstore in the world. There's no publisher
Yeah.
to put you on. Like you have to be so on it. I've experienced both. My first two novels were self-published and before I got my publishing deal, so I understand what that feels like. And no, unless you're really okay, that's why I kind of started off and said like you really have to be committed to it, or else I wouldn't encourage self-publishing. Or the other part is you are committed to your business. Now, if you're self-publishing nonfiction and you're committed to your business and you're saying that this self-publishing is another lever that you're going to pull on as a marketing tool, then do that. That's different because your commitment level is still the same. You still have a very high commitment level to try to reach a goal. But if you're just doing this for validation, you just want the title of an author, that title is not as prestigious as you think anymore. No, there was a time, yes, novel writing goes back to uh, probably like I think the 1600s, right? Its current
Yeah.
novel in its current form goes back to about the 1600s. So there was a novelty to it. There was like it's only certain people could be
Yeah.
authors, and there was prestige to it. Like, oh my gosh, you're an author. It's not like that anymore. I could write a book with AI, put it on Amazon, and call myself an author. So the prestige is gone now. So don't do it for validation. And then also it's too the process of writing is too painful for you to worry about validation. But then if you're doing it um for legacy, I do ghostwriting, so I also write books for people. And
Mhm.
sometimes there are, especially let's say older people who are retired,
Mhm.
grandparents, um, business people who've accomplished a lot, people who are in different parts of not even just business, just absolutely had a wild life, had a life that was just incredible, and they want to document it. They just
Yeah.
want to write it. They don't care about selling the book. They're gonna write. They need help writing the story. They'll print out 50 copies and they'll just give it to their family so their legacy gets preserved because their entire family doesn't know about the life that this person lived. That's beautiful. I think that is an incredible reason to write a book. And I would encourage people to do it for that reason. But that's not because of that person is trying to validate themselves. They're trying to like preserve a legacy with their
Mhm.
family and a whole different thing. So validation for a book doesn't make any sense in 2025, 2026. Um, but for legacy, I would say for sure, it's if you're capable of writing, or if you're not and you need to hire a ghostwriter, give me a shout. But yeah, like it's a good reason to write a book.
Okay. Now, since we are talking about 2026, right? This episode will be the last episode. I mean, it will go out on 31st of December. So last episode of the year. But just want to ask, as a writer or just as a person, right, in business, how has 2025 treated you?
2025 has been interesting for me. I would say in many ways I feel like I'm the most valuable I've ever been in my life, but I don't have the most money I've ever had in my life. I
Yeah.
think the last 2 years from 2023 and 2024, well, I guess 3 years, wow, to 2025, I I spent a lot of time well and trying to build other businesses, but then also just like living the author life and building up IP. I'm someone who has 5 books published. I have 3 more publishing deals. So I have 2 books coming out in 2026, one coming out at the beginning of 2027. I have a film that I co-created and produced that came out in 2023. I have another short film that I just produced that's coming out in March of 2026.
Mm-hmm.
I have spent the last three, let's say since I got published, so 5 years just building up IP.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm ready to do now for 2026 and onward is start cashing in on that IP. Is
Mm-hmm.
start really finding different ways to leverage all of the things that I've been creating for the last decade plus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and finding different ways now with all of these different tools and resources and platforms and the engagement of the community that I've built over the last few years. I think now is a really good time for me to sit to activate the IP that I've built in many different ways. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And then 2025 was just another year of me was me realizing that was me realizing like, you know what, Kern, you spent a lot of time creating and you're going to keep creating for sure.
Yeah.
But let's focus on the much more focus on the business right now. Let's focus on leveraging IP and understanding different ways that I can distribute, bring attention to or profit of off of the creations that I have because I think I've done a lot of really good work,
Mm-hmm.
and it deserves some more attention. Even though again I've done well as an author, right? I've sold tens of thousands of books, but still,
Yeah.
I think there's a whole there's a whole untapped audience that I haven't even touched yet, and I need to get. I'm going to be so hyper focused on that this year. That's my main goal.
Okay. Talking about community, right? You mentioned community just now. So this community that you built, what's was the basis of this? I mean, did you create it by sharing your story, or was it through shared experiences, right? Because I mean, there are several different ways in building community. What was the method or the message that worked in building yours?
So I'll say two. I'd say the first community I built was through something called Cry Magazine. I built a digital magazine and I
Mm-hmm.
called it Cry because it was just all we spoke about were the emotions around being a writer. We didn't talk about how to do this. We didn't talk about craft. We didn't talk about much of anything. I opened it up to writers who wanted to talk about like the joy, the frustration, the comparison, all that, and that got me my first community. I was able to, with $0, we were able to get to about close to 40,000 views per month
Okay.
on Cry Magazine. So my first real community started there. That was on Medium, if you remember Medium as a platform.
Yeah.
Then you remember Medium, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
then I moved over to Substack in about 2021 or
Mm-hmm.
so. And then what I started doing in, I would say 2022 is I created something called Writers Are Superstars. So a little bit of the same with
Mm-hmm.
Cry Magazine, but much more specific. That now I added in the cultural piece. So now we talk about um, the intersection between publishing and popular culture,
All
but
right.
it's still rooted in confidence. Rooting in helping writers feel like they are superstars. That's why I call it writer superstars. It's helping them feel confident and
Mm-hmm.
understand their true value, so they can actually go out into the world and build a career for themselves. So that's what my community is rooted in. And I'm the inspiration for writers. My platform is inspirational for authors and for writers, and it's also very informative. It gives them information from a very specific perspective, and again of how writers show up in culture, how publishing is connected to popular culture, why we should be proud to be writers, what it feels like to, and I talk about myself sometimes in my pieces as well, what it feels like to struggle through being an author. So it's this, my community is made up almost completely of different writers and creative people. Like that's it. Emerging writers at different phases of their life, of their careers.
Right. Kern, I don't know if I should call this the last question, but I was going through what you've done through life, and one thing that stood out was you're living the life that you wanted to. I mean, when you ask children what they want to be, and now you are basically what you wanted to be as a child, right? So, how does it actually feel? Because there's so many of people like me who wanted to become something, and now we're just stuck in corporate lives or just not where we would
Yeah.
thought we would be, but yeah, how does it feel to live that life?
Honestly, it feels really good. It feels magical. It feels like I am some kind of genie that wished for this to happen and got so lucky that it actually happened, you know? It's it's I would say it's my proudest achievement is the fact that at 8 years old I said I want to be an author and now I'm an author. You know
Uh-huh.
what I'm saying? Like that
Yeah,
is my
yeah, I
proudest
get that. I
achievement.
get that.
I could have stopped at any point when I was not getting any attention, when no one was reading my books, when I couldn't sell any books self-published, when no one would publish me, when I lost my first agent, when I couldn't, my first book got published but only sold 600 copies in the first like 6 months. I could have stopped so many
Yeah.
times, but I hung on and I kept going. And obviously I had different experiences in life as well. I didn't just like write, I did other things, but I always prioritize writing. I prioritize being an author. And for me to wake up every day and have the privilege of writing books and telling stories is it feels
Mhm.
magical. It really does. I feel like this is magic, you know?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. When I read that little sentence, right, you wanted to be a writer when you were a child, and then now you're a writer and you're an author, published author. That is like, okay, this is something I need to ask you about, right? Because I don't know, but people just get lost in life sometimes, right? There's so many things happening. As you mentioned, right? There were so many points where you could have just left it around and let it be and say that, oh, this will happen another day. Okay. Could you just share one thing that kept you going on this path itself?
I'll share two. First of all, the simplest one, but the most profound one is I really love writing. You have to
Mhm.
like if you don't love in art very specifically, if you don't love the art, do something else. Just keep it as a hobby,
Yeah.
because it's too the emotional journey is too much if you don't love it. So the love actually kept me going. That's one thing, but I'll give you something more practical. The progression. I was someone who I think one of my skills is I'm
Mm-hmm.
able to step back for myself and see progress and assess my progress correctly and say, you know what, for example, with my first book, I said, I'm not good enough yet to write a full novel,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm saying that as someone who was writing since I was a child, but I'm like, I'm not good enough to write a full novel yet. I'm gonna make this book a novella, which is a shorter novel, right? So my first book is only 72 pages.
Okay.
That's because I personally didn't feel like I had the skill, the technical skill to write a book, to write a full novel. So I wrote it. I felt really good about it. It's still one of my favorite books. I still sell copies of it to this day, even though it came out over 10 years ago, right? But for my second novel, I'm like, all right, I need to get my skill together. So I took a lot of courses. I got better. My second was a lot better as far as storytelling and being character building and having multiple characters and story arcs, imagination. It was a lot better. So I saw my progress. And then third book, I got published. So that was my first published novel, and then
Mm-hmm.
Penguin, and then Scholastic. So I was able to step back and say like, here's where I am. Here's where I need to be. What do I need to? What's it going to take to get to this level? When I get to that level, feel okay with it, not feel like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm not selling a million books yet. Let me be disappointed. No, I got to the next level and then the next level. Progress, trust me, when you're able to give yourself milestones, reach those milestones, it really, really gives confidence. And in anything, I'm sure this is not just with art, but with anything,
Yes,
once you
that's
have
right. Yes.
confidence, Whoo, it changes everything for you. Once your confidence is like, okay, I could do this, now it changes the way you think, it changes the approach to your work, it changes the output of your work, it changes the way you carry yourself, changes the way you talk about your work. So the
Uh,
milestones is everything. Make sure you're not just skipping steps, you're giving
mhm.
yourself milestones, making those milestones and being like, all right, let me get to the next one and the next one so that you feel you're not disappointed by your production, by your output.
uh, Yeah, definitely. That one rings a bell, right? You have milestones, you reach your milestones, and you get the boost, and then you work harder on the next milestone, right?
Yes.
It
Yes.
gets you into
Boost.
that.
That's a good word.
You get into that cycle of getting boosted by reaching every next milestone. Thank you so much, Kern, on joining me on this very special episode, which will be the last episode. To those joining in, Happy New Year to you. And before I close, sorry, Kern, for not asking you, where can people get in touch with you?
Best thing to do is go to my website, kerncarter.com, or just Google Kern Carter. You'll see me pop up on all the social channels. But yeah, kerncarter.com is the best place.
Thank you so much once again, Khan, for joining in on this episode. To those who've been watching and listening intently, do leave a like. You watched and listened long enough. The questions, the comment section is open for questions, perspectives, and anything else you want to add to this conversation. And yeah, please do subscribe. Thank you so much for joining in on this very special episode. Thank you for joining in, Khan. All the best, very best for the new year, and also to all the listeners and viewers out there listening and watching to this episode. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you, Khan.
Thank you.